everyone, I hope y'all are having a great day, and today I'll be reviewing The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Ahdieh, which is the sequel and the conclusion to The Wrath and the Dawn. I read The Wrath and the Dawn last year, and I think I mentioned it in my most favorite books of 2015 video, but yeah, I really enjoyed that book. So The Rose and the Dagger was one of my most anticipated releases of this year, 2016. So for those who don't know, this is The Wrath and the Dawn, the first book in this duology, and it's a retelling of 1001 Nights, and there's a caliph who marries a new bride every evening and has them executed at dawn. And our main character is named Shahrazad, spelled like this, and I still don't know how to pronounce it, even though I'm done with the series now. But she volunteers to be the caliph's bride because the caliph has previously killed her best friend, and she is seeking revenge. So that's what the first book is about, and I'm not going to go into what the sequel is about, just in case there are people who haven't read The Wrath and the Dawn. I don't want to spoil anybody unintentionally. So The Rose and the Dagger is the sequel, of course, and it took me a very long time to read. And it's not really the book's fault. I think it was my fault. I guess I just wasn't in the mood for this book, or maybe I just wasn't in the mood to read in general. But yeah, I read this book very slowly, and I wasn't ever that invested in the story, which was very weird for me because I enjoyed the first book so much. I would only read a few pages, if any at all, of The Rose and the Dagger a day, and when I put it down for the night, I wouldn't feel very compelled to pick it back up again. And it wasn't like I disliked the characters or anything, because I really do like the characters. I think I just wasn't interested in the storyline itself. I thought that the stakes, although they were very high, didn't feel very real to me, so there wasn't exactly a moment where I felt worried for the characters' well-being, because I just felt like everything was going to be okay by the end. Renee Ahdieh has a very flowery writing style, and it can be really beautiful, but also, at other times, it kind of irritated me personally. The flowery writing style just wasn't a good combination with my impatience with the storyline, because when you're wanting the pace of the plot to pick up, flowery writing kind of emphasizes the slowness of the plot, and so all the flowery writing kind of makes it feel like the plot is moving even slower than it is. She also has a heavy tendency to write in fragments, and had it only been an occasional thing, I don't think I would have paid that much attention to it, but she would employ the same syntax over and over again. Oftentimes she would make one fragment its own paragraph. Its own paragraph. It's not even its own sentence. I don't know why you would make it its own paragraph. I mean, yeah, it's for emphasis and it also ensures the stylistic structure of the writing, but I also feel like there's a point where you should just let the readers read your writing in their own way, like finding their own rhythm in the words. I think one of the best examples of this was this following passage that I'll read to you, and I'll let you know when there's a new paragraph. So, new paragraph. But once Shahrazad found a solution, she could tell Tariq the truth. New paragraph. Perhaps then his hatred for Khalid would begin to dissipate. New paragraph. And reconciliation could begin. New paragraph. For ending this curse was not simply about ending their suffering. New paragraph. Shahrazad had to put a stop to the war she'd set in motion. New paragraph. It was not just a matter of love, it was a matter of life. New paragraph. And she meant to write it once and for all. Well, why did each of those sentences have to be their own paragraph? I don't understand. Maybe this kind of thing doesn't bother you, but once I start noticing it, I get so distracted by it, and every time I see it, it's like a big red flag. If you don't mind that kind of writing, then good for you, but for me, I just find it very disruptive. Renee Ahdieh's writing also borders on cheesy, particularly when she's writing romance. And when you're into the romance, it's okay, it's cute, and it works for me. But when you're not feeling the couple as much, then it can be a little jarring. Because it's very Disney, One True Love kind of romantic dialogue and writing that she's putting into this book. And if you're not really connected with that romance, if you're not like rooting for them or supporting the characters, then it feels a little forced. Like I mentioned before, her writing can be very pretty, and she does have a certain lyricism to her writing style, but also sometimes she sacrifices rationality for her lyricism. An example of this is when she writes, "The girl's eyes flashed through a myriad of colors before settling on green." And that sounds really nice, and I love the idea of things flashing a myriad of colors, but not when it's eyes. And not when the sentence ends as if it's the eyes that are testing out all these different colors and then finally choosing one that they like the best or something. What? Moving forward, for a conclusion, I think this book did its job. It wrapped things up nicely, really, really nicely in a way that I personally thought was a little too neat, but I'll talk more about that in the spoiler section. I think readers will be satisfied with the end. They're not going to be mad at it. I'm not mad at it, but I was just hoping for something a little different. Overall, I thought The Rose and the Dagger was pretty good, but not really good. I thought The Wrath and the Dawn was really good, and so I was disappointed with The Rose and the Dagger. I'm kind of upset with myself that I wasn't able to lose myself in the story, and again, it's very possible that I just wasn't in the proper mood to read this particular book. Nonetheless, I would still recommend this duology to people, to anybody who's interested in reading it, because I do think it's very good. I think it's very satisfying. I really like the first book a lot, and I think Renee Ahdieh is a very, very talented writer. I think it's incredible that The Wrath and the Dawn was her debut novel because it was so good. So Renee Ahdieh shows a lot of promise, and I'm looking forward to seeing her future projects. But now I'm going to go into some spoilers for The Rose and the Dagger. So if you haven't read this book, then I would advise leaving in 3, 2, 1. Bye, goodbye, bye, bye. So touching upon how I was never worried about any of the characters, there are two sides to this. It was either that I didn't even care that much about the character, or I thought that the character would end up being okay. An example of the first part would be Rahim. So when Rahim died, although I found him a very likable character, I literally did not feel a thing. And that's very abnormal for me because I get very emotional about like any kind of character death. And I'm always the first to cry in a book or a movie. But Rahim's death did not move me at all. An example of the second part of this, where I like the character and I care about what happens to them, but I thought they would be okay in the end no matter what, was when Khalid got stabbed by Shahrazad's father. I didn't care that much about that part either. And it's not that I don't think his death is important. It was that his death didn't feel permanent to me. There's something about this story that makes you feel like all the characters are going to be okay by the end, that all the issues are going to be resolved, and that you don't need to really stress yourself out about the well-being of these characters because they're covered. Maybe that's because in this book, the line between good and evil is pretty black and white. You know that any character that's allied with either of the main characters is going to be good, and that anybody who's bad will be suspiciously painted, you know, chapters in advance so that you know, you have a heads up. And so that suspense or that worry about the characters wasn't necessarily there for me. The ending was so neat, I thought. Besides Irsa and Rahim, R.I.P., all the romantic pairings ended up together, or like they're a budding romance like Tariq and Yasmin. The bad guy surrendered so Khalid didn't have to spill innocent blood. The bad guy was taken off his throne and was replaced by a good ally. Everything was so happily ever after. And granted, this is a retelling of a fairy tale-esque kind of story, and so I guess it has a little bit of an excuse. But the thing about retellings is that I would like retellings to be refreshing and unique, and I like when they subvert the source material in a way that's surprising and innovative. So I wish that I was surprised at the end of the book, or at the very least, I wish that it had pulled something emotionally out of me. I also wish that magic was explored more in this book. I think one of my minor issues with the very first book was that the appearance of magic wasn't consistent and you didn't really get to explore that magical element. I wish in this book Shahrazad had developed her magic more instead of just recognizing that she needed like an outside source for her to work her magic. I also wish Artan was more of a prominent character because I thought he was so interesting, and he's set up as such a big mystery. Him and his family, especially his aunt, and their relationship with that magical book. It's set up with so much enigma, I guess. And so I wanted that to be also developed or explored further in this book, and it wasn't. I feel like what we saw of him in this book barely scraped his history. So I would consider that maybe a loose end that Renee Ahdieh didn't really tie up, but maybe she's planning on expanding that storyline in a different series or something. Anyway, I've spent a lot of time talking about things that I didn't like, and I don't want you guys to get the impression that I didn't like this book, because I did. For example, I like Shahrazad. I like Shahrazad a lot. I think she's strong. The thing I like the most about her is that she's very, very flawed. So she's not perfect by any means. She has a lot of good qualities, but she also has a handful of really bad qualities. And so she feels like a balanced character to me. I don't like what she does 100% of the time. I think she can be stupid or naive or irritating, but I also think she can be strong and smart and wonderful. The series is short. It's only 2 books. It's a duology, but still Renee Ahdieh manages to give Shahrazad her own small little character arc. I like Khalid, and I still don't know how to pronounce his name either. I'm sorry. And I like that he tries to be a better leader. What I really like is the small details that Renee Ahdieh puts in. I love that all the other adults in this book call Khalid a boy king, and it's to emphasize his youth and his inexperience, and it's to make him feel bad about himself, like he doesn't belong on that throne. And so I like how his youth makes Khalid want to work harder and to overcome his shortcomings. What I think is really impressive is that I can actually genuinely see Khalid as a ruler, and as a pretty good ruler. It's not like Maxon from the Selection series, where I would be scared for my life if I ever had to be governed by him. Like, I wouldn't even put that kid in charge of a school group project. Another thing I like about this book is the relationship between Khalid and Shahrazad. They have a lot of mutual respect and admiration between them, and I think that's very important. They exist in a state of almost complete comfort around each other at all times. So they're always very comfortable with each other, they know each other very well, and I think that's very important too. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say about The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Ahdieh. I know I spent so much of this video talking about my criticisms, but please don't let that lead you into thinking that I didn't enjoy this book, because I did. It just was a little bit of a disappointment compared to the first book. I didn't hate this book at all. I liked it. I just didn't really like it. Please let me know what you thought of The Rose and the Dagger in the comments. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Did you think that Renee Ahdieh should have expanded more on things? Did you find it a very satisfying conclusion? I would really, really love to know. Thanks so much for watching. I hope y'all have a fantastic day and happy reading. Goodbye!